I always thought about harming myself.
I'm shy. I struggled with making friends.
I never thought I could do anything. I have extremely low self esteem.
Lately, I've been eating my pain away. Just throw it back up. I've been struggling to lose weight. Somebody said I don't fit in just because I wear my hair the way I like it.
1 out of 5 American girls suffer from mental health problems. Don't be that girl. Talk to someone.
Those thoughts I had are long gone, for I have a future I need to get to.
In order to get better, I had to do better. I learned how to make friends.
I believe in myself. That's when everyone else did, I set an example.
Instead of me eating everything, I started watching my calories. The weight is falling off.
I wanted to change my hair, but I decided it was for me. It's for me.
A PSA from the Curvy Girl Project.
And good morning. Welcome to Expose Under the Sun, sponsored by the Detroit Native Sun newspaper. I'm your host, Darwin Griffin. And we've got a phenomenal half an hour with my two special guests today. And we are live. And if you'd like to call in, our phone number is at 313-868-0342, 313-868-0351, or 313-868-4336. Our website is www.tv33whpr.com. And you're watching us live from the phenomenal cities of Highland Park, Michigan, under the auspices of the Honorable Mayor Mike Duggan, as well as the phenomenal city of Highland Park, Michigan, under the auspices of the Honorable Mayor Glenda McDonald. So Glenda McDonald in Highland Park, Mike Duggan in Detroit. But before we get started, I know I had to speak at a Highland Park City Council meeting yesterday, and I know I got a chance to go and meet several people on the council, as well as the clerk and the deputy clerk. But just wanted to make an announcement that I met Sidney Spite, and he is the president of Parker Pride in Highland Park. And I told him I would make the announcement on the show today that the city of Highland Park is having their Christmas in the Park. And it's going to be at the Massachusetts Park, which is located at 12170 Woodward in Highland Park. And they're having their city tree lighting ceremony. And the tree lighting is going to start at 6 o'clock p.m. But the Christmas in the Park, they're going to have different events. They're going to have prizes. There's going to be a lot of networking, a lot of camaraderie, amongst the residents of Highland Park. But it goes from 3 o'clock and until 6 o'clock. And again, like I said, at 6 o'clock, that's when they're going to light the tree. So again, you want to definitely, if you live in Highland Park or you grew up in Highland Park, please don't not go and support them, with the tree lighting. And I think they're going to ask people too that if you want to bring ornaments to adorn on the tree, you can do that, as well. So again, that's this coming. That's going to be this week, and it's going to be a phenomenal something too that's going to be held, like I said, at the this coming Saturday. So please support them. But today I've got two special guests that are going to be on the show with me today, and this is to my right. This is Linda Campbell. She's the senior director of Detroit's People Platform, and Theo Pride, who's the manager of organizing and operations. So again, want to thank you both for coming on the show with us today.
Good morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Yep.
Okay, let's get started. So, Linda, talk about what is the future of the Health Development Project?
Well, good morning again, and thanks to all of our Detroit and Highland Park listeners. Theo and I are here. We welcome this opportunity to educate our community about this mega billion-dollar development that's happening right over here on the boulevard. The Future of Health is a major redevelopment project. I think it's coming in at around $3.5 billion that will extend between Euclid, the impact area is Euclid to the north, just so everyone has a sense of where we're talking about. Euclid to the north, I-94 to the south, Woodward to the east, and Rosa Park, 12th Street to the west. The major partners who are doing the development include Michigan State University.
My alma mater.
Oh, well, there you go. Henry Ford Health Systems, and Tom Gores with the Pistons. What will be included in this development, the hospital is doing a major redevelopment. They are building a brand new state-of-the-art high-tech hospital on the south side of the boulevard. MSU, in partnership with Henry Ford, will be building a Health Science Research Center there. And then Tom Gores, just a little bit south of the boulevard, will be building 3 luxury residential apartments. Ostensibly, as they always say, these projects are to bring jobs, bring a different level of density, bring new residents into the community, and spur economic opportunity. It is the biggest redevelopment project to date in the city of Detroit, being funded in part with taxpayer dollars.
So do they have an idea, Linda, about, because that's usually the first thing that everybody wants to ask is about jobs and how many jobs it may bring. Do you have an idea, or have they told you roughly about how many jobs it may do, especially building the housing complex that he's talking about doing?
Well, Theo has done a lot of the analysis on just what kind of impact this project will have, particularly in jobs. So I'll let Theo sort of lead the conversation on that.
Yeah, when you see these type of developments, they always promise a lot of jobs. Mm-hmm. And so it's a couple of ways you can think about it, right? It's always a construction piece, mm-hmm. and it's always a permanent jobs piece. So like who will, work in the commercial space, the retail space, and so forth. So the temporary, the construction jobs are temporary, right? They don't stay forever. The permanent jobs, of course, right, they have, long-term kind of implications. In this project, most of the jobs, of course, and with all of the projects, most of the jobs are always the temporary construction jobs. And so they're promising about 9,000 jobs, but when you take away the construction jobs, which are temporary, right, they last for, 2 years.
Until the project
absolutely, right, is short term. It's only 700 permanent jobs, right, and that encompasses jobs in the hospital, the research center, and so forth, and then a few jobs in the luxury housing that Gores has. When you consider how much money they're asking for, and a lot of times these things don't pan out, when you consider how much money they're asking for, that's about $400,000 per job, permanent job. So you could just imagine, Detroiters can just imagine what could they do with, $400,000 besides paying for, one job. And jobs are important, but, it's about the cost benefit.
Because that's one of the things that they're concerned about, too, especially when you're talking about jobs, to make certain that the jobs are going to be held by people that are residents of the city of Detroit. So when they're talking about any type of project, just like when they were doing the Little Caesars Arena, wanted to be concerned about the number of Detroiters that were going to actually be able to get some of those jobs in building the center. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the concerns that I know that if once it goes through city council, that's one of the questions that they ask. Are there going to be Detroiters that are going to be a part of the process of building the complex? I see you shaking your head.
The Detroiters don't get these jobs.
Yeah.
The numbers paying that out. So jobs are created, and a lot of them are good paying jobs. A lot of people don't know this, right? The average wage of a Detroit job is about $80,000, right? But the average wage of a Detroit resident is $40,000. So if you could just do the math, you can discern, right, we aren't getting those jobs, right? And also, too, studies show that, right, only 25% of the jobs in Detroit are actually held by Detroiters, right? So that means the large majority of jobs are being held and worked by folks outside of Detroit.
People that commute.
Absolutely.
And then that also kind of looks at the tax base, because if you got people that are actually working, that actually live in the city of Detroit, that's a higher tax base that the city would be able to generate.
That's right.
Okay, Linda, so talk about a little bit in terms, say, about the community benefit agreement process.
So, yes, many of our listeners will remember in 2016, Detroiters organized and put on the ballot the question of whether we as a city would want to have a community benefit agreement ordinance. That ordinance would allow Detroiters, whenever there was a major economic development project happening in the city, it would allow Detroiters to come to the table and negotiate what are called community benefit agreements with the developers. And that would happen when there was public investment. Just, I believe, right now with the Future of Health project, we're looking at roughly $255 million in public investment. Those are tax abatements that will happen over as long as maybe 35 years. So we organized serious grassroots organizing effort to get that on the ballot so that Detroiters could have some say in these economic projects. Met with fierce resistance by dark corporate money. We all are aware of what that is and how that money works. They put up a competing ordinance, and unfortunately, the more progressive ordinance that had more power for Detroiters was defeated. That was Proposal A, and we ended up with Proposal B. The good news is that we did force City Council to put an ordinance on the books. We only lost by about 15,000 votes, and that ordinance today is what allows Detroiters, just as what's happening with the Future of Health, to identify members of the impact area to sit and actually present and negotiate community benefits. And those community benefits might be anything from senior services, youth programming, housing, which is incredibly important right now in Detroit as we're in the midst of a housing crisis, contributions to our Affordable Housing Trust Fund, recreational services. It's just whatever that community organizes and says, here are the priorities to improve the quality of life, because we know that there are negative mitigations, there are negative impacts when these large-scale developments come into our community. So the Community Benefit Agreement is a process which allows everyday Detroiters to say, all right, in exchange for our tax dollars, these are the kind of benefits we want to reduce the harm that you're about to do in our community.
Okay, and Theo, now, I know we talked a little bit about this earlier, but how does this project differ from like other large-scale economic development projects that we've seen in Detroit, over the past decade, especially beginning with like the redevelopment work that's been done, especially like in the downtown, midtown area?
For sure. There's a few things. One is the sheer project cost, right? These projects become bigger and bigger and bigger. So this project's about $3 billion, $3.5 billion. The other $1 billion project that we've seen, right, was the District of Detroit, right, $1.5 billion. We haven't seen projects of this scale, which lends itself to the other difference. With larger project costs, right, we've seen larger tax incentive packages, essentially, right? So more and more money is being thrown, more and more public dollars are being thrown at these projects, right? To the point where the state legislature has changed the tax incentive laws in order to give these type of developments more and more money, right? It's called the transformational brownfield. The transformational brownfield allows, right, the developer to capture, right, taxes from the income, the sales tax, the income tax, and the use tax. Essentially all tax that the state uses and local municipalities use, right, to finance any kind of public endeavor, right? Those things go to private developers now, right? And so you're starting to see larger and larger what you call tax incentive intensity. With this project, we see that the tax incentive is about 9% because it's $273 million out of $3.5 billion. But if you consider Tom Gores' luxury developments, he's getting 81% of those public subsidies, those public tax dollars, right? So most of the incentives are going to the luxury housing, right? To the point where the luxury housing is about $322 million to develop. Well, 220 million in public financing is going to that project. So that means 70% of the luxury housing here is being financed with public dollars. And that's what I mean about the tax incentive intensity, right? 60%, 70% of these public developments are being financed with public monies, which leads me kind of to the last point. And it's really because of COVID. The justification that has been used in giving away these tax incentives is say, hey, we get jobs in return. Well, we don't get jobs in return anymore because of what COVID has done. It has decimated office space, and it has changed the formula for a lot of developers. So instead of developing offices, they just develop luxury housing like Tom Gores is doing, right? So if you take out Henry Ford and you take out MSU, which are publicly funded kind of nonprofits anyway, right? They should be providing community public benefits already. So if you just look at the private development of Tom Gores and how much he's getting, well, how much jobs is he creating himself? Right, the MSU and Henry Ford Health are creating the jobs here, right? Tom Gores is only creating about 50 jobs with his luxury housing, but he's receiving $220 million in public subsidies. And so this is what I mean in terms of this immense extraction of public money into the pockets of very rich billionaires.
And so now the apartments that he's putting up, is that for low-income Detroiters or?
No, and that's one of our major pushbacks around this development. Well, and it's become a pattern, as Theo just mentioned, where they come to taxpayers, these wealthy billionaires, to get monies to subsidize, get public monies to subsidize their private developments. This particular project that Tom Gores is building is luxury high-rise living. They are pricing the average bedroom, one bedroom and studio apartments. They are more than double what the average Detroiter is able to pay. The last numbers I looked at, some of those apartments over there were going for over $2,000 a month. The majority of the apartments are studio and one-bedroom apartments. There are a few two-bedroom apartments there. We have raised the argument that this is not housing for everyday Detroiters, because what Detroiters need, we need housing that doesn't take more than 30% of our monthly income, and we need housing for households with children, and we need housing for intergenerational households, where maybe the grandma, grandpa is living there with their children and their grandchildren. That is not the kind of housing that we're being asked to invest in as Detroiters.
Well, Theo, now let's talk about the role of the Detroit elected officials in the future of this health project. Tell me, in terms of, where are they at with the city council? Where are some of the other elected officials at in the city of Detroit?
Well, the elected officials, of course, are immensely important in the process, right? They hold a lot of power because none of these tax incentives, right, none of the tax abatements can be approved without city council's right green light, essentially.
They've got to buy into it.
Absolutely. But the process really kind of even starts before that, right? It starts with the NAC. The NAC has a lot of power, right, in the community benefits process, right? They have to sign off on this development before it moves forward. All of the tax incentives have to be approved by the tax incentive authorities, right? Residents can let their voice be heard, right, in these public hearings, to let them know that we want more benefits, that this is inequitable, that this is unjust, and then it gets to city council, right? But absolutely, right. When these things come across the desk of city council, right, one thing they should be looking at is the community benefits agreement. Is it equitable? Have we provided, right, equitable returns to Detroiters, everyday Detroiters, for the amount of tax dollars that we have handed over to these private developers?
So now, are there going to be public meetings, or do they have to go to the city council meetings, or where are these meetings going to be held at?
Well, the first one in terms of the city council is planning and economic development. It has to go to a committee, right? Once it goes to that committee, and the public can show up and they can voice their displeasure, if you will, right? And they can protest against it. Once it moves out of committee, yes, it gets to full council and they have to vote on it. And it has to be majority vote, right, in order for the tax incentives to get approved, right? And so typically we see these processes wrap up pretty quick after, right, the CBA process. And so we're probably talking about sometime in February sometime.
Of next year.
Absolutely, next year.
And so the thing is that what a lot of people don't really realize too is that you've got the presidential election that's coming up.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so are there and would they have a lot of time, to devote to a matter like this in terms of saying where their priorities are at? Are there any elected officials that are pretty much on board with what you're talking about?
Well, as Theo mentioned, there is definitely a role for city council. They can't get the tax incentives unless city council votes for it. Right now, we're still in the CBA process. The Neighborhood Advisory Council, the NAC that Theo referred to earlier, they are in the process of meeting with Henry Ford, the Pistons, Tom Gores and the Pistons, and MSU to negotiate around the benefits that have come forth from the community. Our initial feedback as of last night is that the developer response from MSU, Tom Gores, and Henry Ford is not encouraging. There was absolutely nothing in the initial response that targeted the needs of senior citizens who live in that impact area. That impact area that I identified earlier between Euclid, 94, Woodward, and Rosa Parks, 80% of the folks who live over there are renters. There was nothing in that proposed benefit package from the developers that looked at the issue of displacement, rental assistance when folks are forced to move because the rents will increase. I don't care what you're paying for rent over there now. In the next 2 to 3 years, your rent is more than likely to escalate, and you'll be facing the fact of having to relocate. We had asked for rental assistance, support for seniors, many of whom have been in that community for years. They want to remain there because, of course, there's transportation, there are other kinds of services there. They're there they have access to their health care. They're at threat of being displaced as well. And so we have to get the community involved and put their eyes on what's happening. As Theo mentioned, we're talking $250 million in public tax subsidy to Tom Gores, who will get 80% of that. He's one of the richest men in America. The last time we checked, he was worth about $9 billion. Why does he need public support from Detroiters? If he wants to build luxury high-rise, that's fine. Do it on his own dime is all we're saying. But when you come to the community and you ask for us to defer your fair share of property taxes for 25, 30 years, you owe the community something. And that's where we are now. There's a meeting tonight when we invite Detroiters to show up. Give your voice, make your voice heard. Let them know that we deserve a strong community benefit agreement, and that, we have priorities in this city that speak to the current residents, not the residents that they're planning for.
So the main thing is they need to really make certain, because I'm not sure which city council person represents that district there.
That's
Mayor
President, Council President Sheffield.
So that's Sheffield. That's district. I think that's
That's
District 5,
5.
right? District 5. So the main thing is that you want the people to live in that district that are under her administration, in terms of say that's their elected officials, to make certain that they're there. Because this also is the area that covers like the old Herman Kiefer Hospital.
That's right.
Up in that area.
That's
There,
right.
Claremont, John C. Lodge Expressway up through that area. Up through there. So I think that's probably going to be one of the biggest things, especially depending on the future of this project, as well as the future of that elected official that wants to get elected again. So, the thing is that people need to show up so that they can get an opportunity to go and let Council President Sheffield know their displeasure in terms of say with that. And there's a lot of people, especially like you said, a lot of the renters that rent in that area that are going to be affected.
Yes.
You know, in terms of say with that, because of displacement that may have with a lot of those people, that, especially like you mentioned also like at Rosa Parks, and that's also looking at, does it cover any of where Central High School is at? Like where
No, it's
Central-
not that far down.
It's not that far down.
But
It's
it
just
but
right
it will
there.
have an impact across the city.
Okay.
You know, because of the scale of the project. This is, what is it, Theo? A 5 to 7 year construction project, we believe.
Yeah.
And again, that dollars, investments are being diverted from our schools and our libraries. They will tell you that's not the truth, but Theo has been very active in the movement to restore the taxes that are diverted from the to these projects from our schools and libraries. So,
Well, I think on that note, then we've got a couple minutes left. Theo, I'll let you make some closing statements real quick now.
Yeah,
And then the other thing I want you, before I let you do that, where's the meeting going to be held at?
the meeting happens in person. It's at University Prep, which is 600 Antoinette. That's right near the Pistons Performance Center. You can also access it on Zoom. If you go to the city website, Planning and Development website, you register. They will send you the Zoom link each week. We have a meeting tonight, and then I know there's one more meeting scheduled next week where they will probably plan to vote on and wrap this up.
Okay, Theo.
Yeah, you know, I think it's really important to point out like who's receiving most of these tax incentives, right? Which is Tom Gores, the billionaire, 80% of these tax incentives. With that being said, as we think about the proposed CBA package that developers have put forth, what is Tom Gores, what is the Pistons doing? Because what we've seen typically in these CBA packages from the developer are a bunch of benefits that are what they had planned to do already, right? So they come into the process with a bunch of community benefits that are already attached to the project because of the tax incentives that they have already taken. So when you look at Henry Ford, when you look at MSU, most of the community benefits that they are proposing are from them. They are from them. Henry Ford is supposed to provide community benefits because they are a nonprofit hospital. MSU is supposed to provide community benefits because they are a land-grant university.
Yes.
This is what they're supposed to do, and they're passing that off as community benefits. The community benefits are on top of those things that you should be doing, obligated to do. Tom Gores is doing nothing, right, for $220 million to build a luxury housing development, right, on the boulevard that is going to displace black people in the city of Detroit.
That most Detroiters will not be able to live in.
Absolutely.
Okay, just real quick, if somebody wants to get more information, what's the website or what's the phone number they can call to get more information about what you're doing real quick?
Well, our website is DetroitPeoplesPlatform.org. You can go there and you can see the work that we do. You can find more information on the future of health and other developments. Also, too, you can follow us on Facebook, Detroit Peoples, Instagram, Detroit Peoples, and so forth. And so, we are going to be connected to the development process. Like Linda said, it is a meeting tonight at UPrep High School. I would implore people to show up and let their voice be heard.
Sounds good. Okay, we'll definitely have to invite you back on the show again to kind of give an update, especially after this meeting today. But you've been with my special guest today, Mr. Theo Pride, as well as Ms. Linda Campbell. If you'd like to get more information about the Detroit Native Sun newspaper who sponsors us, you can contact Ms. Valerie Lockhart at 457-313 area code 457-5944. And if you'd like to advertise in the Detroit Native Sun News, you can contact her as well. Again, have a great and wonderful rest of this day and enjoy your holidays.
Here at the Full and Fabulous Curvy Girl Project, we don't just focus on health, beauty, and self-esteem. We also offer an amazing summer program for young ladies ages 12 to 18. For more information, visit our website at fullandfabulous.org. See you soon.